started illustrating manga books in the late 1940s and early 1950s. So it's an art form that emerges from the ashes of World War II. And it was an art form that could express emotions, feelings, psychological states that could not be expressed in daily life in Japan. So one way to think of manga is to think of punk music. A kind of under-the-radar art form that was used to say things you're not supposed to say in daily life. That's important to know because as we receive it here in the United States, we often wonder why it can be so diverse, why it can be so edgy, why it can be so violent, sometimes sexually explicit, etc. It's partly rooted in the fact that it was born under the radar. It was born as a fresh way of expressing things you couldn't say on the streets. Secondarily, the term manga was coined by Hokusai, the great 18th and 19th century woodblock print artist, ukiyo-e print artist. And it essentially means casual, random, throwaway drawings. So it was a lowbrow, accidental art form from the beginning. Another reason why it can be so fresh and why it can be so edgy and why it can be so free. It was born literally to mean something you do in your free time. It has grown since then. Last year, according to Publishers Weekly, manga sales in the U.S. Rose about 10% to a total of $220 million in sales. It's a big jump. It's also jumping in sales in Europe, particularly in France, Spain, and the UK. So it's an enormous market. 1,400 titles were released in the U.S. last year. Next year, the plan is for 1,700 titles to be released. So if you're an American fan of manga, there's more to come.
Yay!
You can see in this beautiful store behind you some of the diverse and colorful titles that are coming out of Japan and into the U.S. You can also see the range of topics that are covered in manga and anime. It's very, very broad, very Catholic, as we say in the U.S., and covers all kinds of categories. There are manga for homemakers, manga for policemen, manga for politicians, manga for athletes, etc. Here in the U.S., I describe the Japan-American movement as a Mobius strip or a media strip. That's the 19th century mathematical concept of a strip of paper that you cut and reattach so that you can no longer tell which side is which. And that's partly because Tezuka himself was greatly influenced by two American artists, Max Fleischer and Walt Disney. In fact, Tezuka claims to have seen Bambi 80 times. And he sat in the theater copying Disney's technique. Of course, if you've seen Tezuka's work, you know that what he reproduced is entirely original, entirely his own. But he was a big fan of Disney and Fleischer. If you follow the Mobius strip through the past 60 years, you'll find American films such as Star Wars and Blade Runner heavily influencing Japanese anime and manga producers. You'll find Japanese films such as Ghost in the Shell showing up in The Matrix by the Wachowski brothers. And more recently you'll find that one of, if not the biggest box office hit in the US last year was called Transformers. Which was based on a Japanese toy series and anime. You'll also find one of the biggest blockbusters of this coming summer is called Speed Racer. Also by the Wachowski brothers, and based on a Japanese anime called Maka Go Go Go, which was broadcast in the United States as Speed Racer on TV in the 70s. I'll add to that Robotech, which is being produced by Tobey Maguire. Spider-Man is doing Robotech. And just recently announced Akira, an anime classic, is being made by what's his name? Leonardo DiCaprio.